there's so many things that you've said here. Going
Okay.
back to the sex education in the schools and what's happening in Texas today.
Yes.
Can you you started to touch on that a little bit there.
Okay.
And I know that what's happening with the LGBTQ agenda.
Yes. Well, the LGBTQ has partnered with Planned Parenthood. So their big push here in Texas, we have something called the Texas Freedom Network, which is an organization that was founded by Cecil Richards, who was the head of Planned Parenthood. And the goal is to look over every single school district in Texas and to review what types of sex education do they have in their school districts. If they don't have pro-Planned Parenthood, LGBTQ type curriculum, then what they're doing is educating people to get on the, not just the school boards, but back it up to the SHACs, which is the School Health Advisory Council. Mm-hmm. That's the group that then advises the school board as to what sex ed curricula they should put in the schools. So we have they have a great plan and how they can get every single school district in the state of Texas to have this. And I would go even bigger than that. I'm part of something called the Protect Child Health Coalition, mm-hmm. and they are doing some great work at educating parents, leaders all over the country mm-hmm. about sex education. And you can actually find out, I believe it is 44 out of the 50 states put a law in based on Kinsey science, something called obscenity exemption, because it's against the law. And if your neighbor shows your child pornography, they can be put in jail. However, if your child goes to school or goes to a library and is given very graphic material, obscenity, if it's used for educational purposes, then it's fine, it's legal. So those laws were put in place based on Kinsey's science, because he's saying obscenity isn't harmful at all. It could be educational tool. So what we are doing is trying to wake up legislators to the fact that these laws are based on Kinsey, and we need to remove those obscenity exemptions and get sex ed out of the schools, back to the parent.
So if I can trace your thought here, we are very much anti-abortion, pro-life. And a lot of our issues have been focused on that. What I've said to many people is that as horrific as the abortion issue is, there is a deeper root.
Yeah.
And what I'm hearing you say, if I understand you correctly, so something like this idea about this Freedom Council or whatever it is with
Yes.
Cecil Richards, who
Yes.
Was the head of Planned Parenthood, her sex education curriculum is leading to the death of children.
Yes, yes.
It is a pro-death.
Yes.
Pro-sexual freedom is pro-death, and
Right.
we need to unmask it. It's, when from a biblical viewpoint, when it talks about, the devil can come to you as an angel of light. Mm-hmm. If a devil came to you as a monster with and you were just scared and petrified,
Right.
You would run away.
Right.
But there is the way that evil portrays itself with beauty to try to say, come here,
Right.
Come to me, because
Right.
I'm going to promise you this.
Right.
But it's still death.
Right. Well, and Kinsey's science, what he did was his science was used to elevate pleasure and eliminate procreation.
Yeah. So pleasure is, and what's
Pleasure
wrong with having a little pleasure?
It's everything. Yes. Well,
Yeah.
pleasure is everything.
Yeah.
So children are taught very early on how to experience pleasure. They're taught usually earlier, younger ages. They're taught about masturbation, and then eventually they're taught about the various ways they can have sex. Any way they want to have sex, and so. Even if you think about it, I was thinking about an activity that my cousin had recently had in the high school, mm-hmm. where they give them a baby doll, and then they have to take the baby doll, and that's supposed to be a big deterrent so that they don't have sex or well, it's a deterrent not to not have sex.
I know.
It's a deterrent to not have babies. Is what the deterrent is.
Yeah.
So you're teaching them early on. Children aren't a blessing.
Yeah.
They're a pain, and they're a lot of work.
Yeah.
So that's what kids in schools are being taught.
Yeah. Well, there was an article that I saw, and I might have the title incorrect here, but what every 8-year-old or 10-year-old
Yes.
or something like that needs to
Yes.
know about anal sex. And
Yes.
the answer is nothing.
Yes, exactly.
This is not something that we should say, well, this is safe sex.
Right.
I mean, it's just...
But again, remember, that is being used to groom kids.
Right.
To be raped. Let's call it raped by adults.
So you're also saying here too then that the sex education in our school it's basic. It's not. It's lowering the guards of the people that are being so-called educated. They're actually being brainwashed.
Exactly.
And then making them vulnerable.
Exactly. And they have a standardized training. I had to go through it as a sex educator. Everyone in this country has to go through it. If they're going to teach sex ed, they have to go through the CECUS training.
Yeah, I know. CECUS is... I remember hearing about CECUS in the 70s or something like that. And I'm sorry, it was in the early 80s. But I'm not that old. Well, I'm old now, but I think it was the early 80s, and I'm like, I was reading the stuff, and I thought, nobody has ever talked about this.
What's interesting about sex education, in the Time of Your Life series, which was, I believe, in the late 1960s, in the series, in the sex education series, they actually were boasting to kids in their films that by the year 2000, that men would no longer have a place in the home, that fathers would no longer, not men, but fathers would no longer have a place in the home, and that the church would no longer exist by the year 2000. Now you ask yourself, why would they say that in a sex ed film? Because they knew exactly what sex education was to do, and what the effect would be on society. So